Yep.
All right. Are you guys ready?
Senator Harper's still in the interim meeting, Beth, so he may not make it.
Thanks, Jeff. I did let them know. Thank you.
I think in the future, I'd like a pace car running around to show me when it's time to enter the track. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the regular local advisory council of the Utah Transit Authority. It's Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. It's 11 a.m. We're starting this meeting. This is a remote meeting, no anchor location. It's live streamed via WebEx, YouTube. It's live streamed via YouTube. We're participating via WebEx. I want to give you notice of the special meeting circumstances due to COVID-19 pandemic, in keeping with the recommendations of the federal, state, and local authorities to limit public gatherings in order to control the continuing spread of COVID-19, and in accordance with the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, specifically Utah Code 52-4-207, sub 4, the Utah Local Advisory Council will make the following adjustments to our meeting procedures. All members of the local advisory council and meeting presenters will participate electronically via phone or video conference. Public comment will not be taken during the meeting, but may be submitted through the means listed below. Comments submitted before 4 p.m. on Tuesday, November 17th will be distributed to council members prior to the meeting. And the link is advisorycouncil@rideuta.com. The telephone number 801-743-3882, option 5. So we're going to proceed in accordance with these with the COVID-19 open meetings rules, as I've stated. So welcome, everyone. Our first item on the agenda is our Safety First Minute. Sheldon Shaw, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is Ron Kendall in for Sheldon. As we head into the winter months, it's time to take a look into our trunks and make sure our emergency car kits are up to date. A few items to have in your car is a flashlight, jumper cables, first aid kit, water, multi-tool, road flares, blankets, ice scraper, sand or cat litter that doesn't clump, toe straps, hand warmers. We need to make sure that we prepare, and let's all have a safe travel.
Thank you. All right, the next item is number 3. It's our consent item, and there's one item on it. It's the approval of the September 16th, 2020 Advisory Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Clint Smith, I will make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Who is that? Karen? Was the second Karen?
Yes, the second was Karen, Troy.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right, seeing none, we'll consider those minutes approved. All right, next item is the audit committee, and that's me and Karen. I've got a little, let's see if I can find my ability to, and I can't. Let's see. Jenna prepared me some good talking points, and I've been having trouble downloading them. So, all right, here we go.
Through those, Troy.
I've got it. I found it.
Perfect.
All right. The audit committee report was, we had an audit committee meeting on the 18th of November of 2020. Myself and Karen were involved in it in the meeting. The UTA audit committee met on October 19th of 2020. UTA has selected the firm of Crow LLP as the new external financial auditor. The audit committee received reports on the status of the internal audit plan and progress on findings for past audits. We found that there was good progress being made on addressing all the past findings, and the audit committee received reports for maintenance of way audit report and the transit-oriented development preliminary assessment. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the audit? Karen, did you have anything you wanted to add?
You covered it, and the audit committee went, I think things are going really smooth, and there's a lot of different checks and balances in the system that I was impressed with.
All right, that's our report. Does anybody have any comments or questions about it? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. It's, Jana, did you say they weren't ready for the agency or the board of trustees report yet? Are they ready for that?
Mr. Chair, I apologize. Yes, I am completely ready to present on behalf of the Board of Trustees. If you are ready for me to present, I will go ahead and start.
Fire away.
Thank you so much. Just for reference, Beth Holbrook, trustee for Utah Transit Authority, and I'm here representing all the board today. Carlton, as you are aware, is an interim meeting, and so will join us as soon as possible. And we do have our trustee-elect, I guess is the term we could use at this point. Mr. Jeff Aserson, Mayor Aserson is on board. He is, as you're aware, Governor Herbert recently appointed Mr. Aserson to the UTA Board of Trustees. Jeff replaces Kent Millington as the trustee representing Utah and Tooele counties and will serve a 4-year term. The Public Transit District Act requires Jeff's appointment to be confirmed by the Senate. Jeff has already been through his confirmation hearing and is now awaiting Senate consent, which is currently scheduled for the end of this month, November 30th. Once Jeff receives Senate approval, he will be sworn in. He is hitting the ground running and has actually been spending time in the office and connecting with the various departments throughout UTA at this point. We wanted to extend a warm welcome to Jeff. We know this is not the official as of yet for the local advisory council, but we anticipate November 30th to then make it official, and we will update everyone at that point on that. The next item I wanted to talk about are the bond refunding results. UTA recently concluded its bond refunding transactions with a net present value savings of 9.3%, which equates to a dollar savings of just over $6.8 million. The refunding is part of a fiscal strategy that we've been doing to take advantage of market conditions that are improving the agency's overall debt profile. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask in the interim. I believe it's in your packet, but just wanted to kind of touch on that. The next item I wanted to talk about is the legislative interim report on the state study. And that is also in your packet. And the board is actually currently reporting today on the Transportation Interim Committee, the results of that study that was conducted with UDOT and UTA, and the feasibility is the discussion point of transitioning UTA to a state entity. The study was performed by a third party in collaboration with UDOT and identified considerations for the opportunities and challenges associated with such a shift in how the agency would report to. The legislature will determine what actions, if any, will result from the study. I can report that item was just presented prior to me getting on to this meeting this morning, Mr. Chair, and it appears that the discussion points in terms of the feasibility for the finances, as well as the governance and the employee issues as well, was addressed, and that none of those issues at this time are probably going to be brought before the legislature. In other words, there will not be any changes required at this time, although obviously the legislature has the right to make any decisions moving forward. They did ask a couple clarification questions, but they do not anticipate that the maximum value of combining these two entities will result in anything from our presentation today, which was in line. The biggest discussion is obviously the bonding and, our debt and how that bonding would take place and what impacts that would have on the state of Utah. In the meantime, we, as you know, work very closely with UDOT on planning and projects that will improve the transportation systems along the Wasatch Front. We work with our MPOs, both WFRC as well as MAG, to really enhance all the areas that we service. And with that, Mr. Chair, that is my report. If there are any questions, again, happy to entertain them.
Anyone have any questions for Beth?
Well, I will take that as I answered your questions, but again, please reach out if there is anything else moving forward. Happy to help and stay connected in any way.
I have one question. Is that report available for trustees to have and read?
The state report,
Yes.
Yes, it is available. Would the local advisory council like to have a copy of that?
I would. I'd like to see it. I don't know if anyone else would, but I would. If you could get it to us, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'll make,
It's like Mayor Mendenhall, Mayor Fulmer.
I think
want it as well.
Yeah, I would as well.
perfect. We'll make sure, Janet, if you wouldn't mind making a note of that, and we'll make sure that that report gets sent out to the local advisory council members.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
No questions, just wanted to congratulate Mayor Acerson. I think that's a great appointment.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, congratulations, Jeff.
Thank you,
All
Troy.
right. Are we ready for the agency report then, if we flipped them?
Yes, I can step in and fill in for Carolyn.
Are you ready to go then, Eddie?
I am. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Eddie Cummins. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at UTA, and I have 2 items today. First, I'll provide a ridership update, and then Lauren Simpson, who is the Regional General Manager of our Salt Lake Service Unit, and Andrea Packer, UTA's Communication Director, will share some information about our 2021 ski bus outreach efforts. I'll first begin with the ridership report. Can we go to the next slide, please? This slide compares current ridership to our pre-COVID level. I believe the Advisory Council has seen this presentation before. As you can see, ridership is still down significantly. We saw a bump right around our August change day, and then we saw another slight bump on election day, which I'll talk about more later. But overall, our ridership still remains really low. Paratransit's down 60%. Our fixed drop bus ridership is down 61% compared to pre-COVID levels. Light rail's down 65%. UVX is down 67%. And Frontrunner is down 77%. Currently, our weekday ridership is right around 56,441 riders a day. Next slide, please. So this is just a different way of looking at our ridership. This slide compares current ridership by mode to pre-COVID levels, as well as our low point, which was on April 7th. As you can see, the red portion there, the current versus pre-COVID, you can see the modes down compared to pre-COVID levels. But then over on the other side, our current ridership compared to April 7th, which was our lowest level. And so you can see that we've increased significantly since our low point in April, but we have a long way to go to catch up to where we were. Next slide, please. Saturday ridership is down on UVX 34%, fixed route bus is down 41%, light rail is down 62%, Frontrunner is down 65%, and Paratransit's down 69%. Currently on Saturdays, we're carrying about 36,000 riders a day. Next slide, please. On Sundays, ridership is down on fixed route bus 56%, light rail's down 59%, Paratransit's down 77%, and of course, Frontrunner and UVX do not run on Sundays. Currently, our Sunday riderships is almost 13,000 riders a day. Next slide, please. I just wanted to provide some quick information on Election Day. As you probably know, UTA offered free fares system-wide on Election Day, and we saw an increase in ridership on almost all of our modes. Fixed route bus was up 10% when we compare it to the past 5 weekday average. UVX was up 21%, commuter rail was up 15%. Resista and light rail, they were relatively flat. Paratransit was up 1%, and we saw our largest increase on microtransit, which was up 25% on Election Day. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll see if anybody has any questions before we move on.
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So Eddie, do we have any way to compare it to what we're seeing as far as drivers out there? I mean, is it overall low? People are just staying in? Are the roadways about the same as far as down their usage?
You know, I don't have the comparison between road usage and our ridership. I don't have that right off the top of my head. But, you know, I think that we saw, so as most know, we restored 91% of our service in August, right? So when we put out the new service on the road, we saw a bump. I think, you know, as we've seen, you know, the COVID cases increase, you know, and kind of the coverage in the media, I think people right now are really just taking essential trips. And I think that's why we saw a slight decrease in ridership over the past couple of weeks.
I wondered, Eddie, if there's some other reasoning that you could also imagine of why, what about the election day package brought so many riders out for us?
With the
I'm trying to get you to say that it was free, and that's why.
Yes, we did offer free fare on election day, and we did see an increase in ridership. Absolutely. I think that's something we'll continue to look at in the future. I think our board will be interested in trying to offer a free fare on election day in the future. I think it was a big success.
I'll tell you that I appreciate it from our efforts on tickets for transit, showing that free passage does increase ridership, and having this result even in the midst of the pandemic is really helpful as we continue to make that case on making your ticket to any event also a free fare pass in Salt Lake. It's great results.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Eddie.
Great. Now I can, if I could, I will turn it over to Lauren Simpson and Andrea Packer, who will share some information about our 2021 ski outreach efforts. Lauren?
Good morning. Today, Andrea Packer and I will give a brief overview of what the upcoming ski service will look like during this COVID pandemic. And we will share some strategies that we'll be implementing to help our customers have the best experience possible. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. Our goals for ski service this season are listed here, and for sake of brevity, I'll focus on our primary goal, which is, of course, the safety of our riders and operators. In order to accomplish that during COVID, we will need to do things a little bit differently than we have in the past. One of those things will be limiting our passenger loads to about 20. One strategy to help us do that will be running full ski service to each of the 7 resorts in our coverage area. Next slide. In Weber County, we will provide, as we have in pre-COVID years, 2 ski routes, one to Powder Mountain and one to Snow Basin. Next. In Davis County, there's also a ski route that provides a second route to Snow Basin. Next. And in Salt Lake County, we plan to once again provide all-day service with 15-minute frequency during the peak to all 4 Cottonwood Canyon resorts. Next slide. And in Utah County, we have a route to Sundance, also with the same level service that we've provided pre-COVID. So managing these loads will be a challenge because historically our loads can be heavy during typical ski seasons. So in addition to providing high service levels, Andrea will share a few more strategies that we will employ to help us manage our loads, keep customers safe, help customers plan ahead, and maintain customer confidence. So Andrea, I'll hand it to you.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, council members. Please go to the next slide. So as Lauren emphasized, we really want to reassure our customers that we will get them to the resort safely, and communicate with them about the things we're doing to keep them safe, as well as how they can plan ahead and things that they can do to respond to some of the changes they will see this season. And we're excited about some of the tools that we have available to help communicate and help them actually plan ahead. So one, we will be focusing on a lot of customer information in the system, as well as a lot of advertising, marketing, and information to help them get information before they leave their house. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Apologize. So some of the things, as Lauren mentioned, that we will be doing, we're continuing our safety measures through this ski season. Masks and hand sanitizer are available on all of our buses and all of our vehicles, limiting passenger loads, as Lauren already mentioned. We will be establishing socially distanced lines at key stops. There's about 19 or 20 key stops that have been identified where we will have delineators to provide socially distanced lines as they board. And at the rest of the stations, we will have signage at the bus stops to provide them with similar information. Again, as Lauren said, if COVID has taught us anything, it is to be flexible and responsive. So we will continue to monitor ridership and to provide social distancing and additional vehicles where we can. We're also communicating off-peak times and preferable times and parking locations where people could maybe minimize their delays and be able to get on the ski bus without any problem. Next slide, please. So some of the things you'll see in the system, I said a lot of system information and communicating with our riders on the ground is we will have signs at the train stations as they connect from the trains to the buses. At the queue lines that I mentioned at those 19 or 20 buses, we will have large A-frame signs to give them additional information. And I already mentioned the bus stop signs. If we get to a point where we feel that a bus is at a maximum load, we do have signs that the operators will use to indicate to passengers that the bus is full and to advise them to wait for the next one. Next slide, please. In addition to that, those were some of the things we'll be doing on the ground. But as I mentioned, we're doing a lot of communications in multiple areas to really get information out to customers and riders ahead of time. So we're doing a lot with our social media and our online tools like blogs and social media posts will begin. And they will be coinciding with the opening of the resorts. The Cottonwood Canyons are opening with our change day on November 29th. The Ogden resorts are opening a couple weeks later, and Sundance is opening a week after that. And so it's a little bit of a rolling campaign. Some of the tools I mentioned that will really help our customers is this year we launched a service alerts tool where people can sign up for the routes that they take, and they can receive alerts and information about detours or delays on those routes. In addition to that, the Transit app, the Transit app is UTA's officially endorsed app for mobile trip planning, and they have been tremendous partners and are geared up to help us communicate with customers ahead of time. And they also had just launched a new geo-crowding tool where riders can inform each other if a bus is full, and we will be taking advantage of that. We're also looking at having snow-go teams with employee volunteers who can go out and assist customers, and email blast to our partners and to the resorts and to their season pass holders. So that's a quick summary of what we'll be doing on the ground, as well as in kind of the marketing and electronic field. And if you'll just go to the last slide, I believe. I just want to give a shout out to all of our partners. They've been tremendous in this and supporting us. Not only the ski resorts, but UDOT is working with us on their electronic signage, Ski Utah, the airport, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we really have a lot of irons in the fire, and we'll be working to communicate as best as we can with our riders this season and remain flexible. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Andrea?
I have a question. At what % capacity will those ski buses be able to go with the COVID precautions in place? About how, in comparison to what used to be considered full, how many are we going to be able to put on?
Lauren, do you want to address that? I know you already mentioned kind of our limit.
Yeah, so our ski buses have a seating capacity of about 22 to 23. And however, in typical ski seasons during peak hours, there'd be standing room only of 30, 40, 50 or more people And so our goal is to manage those loads and try to keep them at 20. And so that will be, as we mentioned before, a challenge. Will require a lot of communication with the customers. We'll be monitoring the ridership, sending up extra buses where needed. So I guess I would say, in short, it's about half of what our loads typically are during busy peak hours on busy days.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, thanks. I wondered if you've been involved in the interlodge considerations that the resorts are grappling with right now. You know, that sort of, well, actually, Mayor Sondak posted a really compelling and I think poignant letter to the people of Alta on the website just the other day, talking about how disastrous thousands of people without lodging, having to stay up the canyon could be. And I just wondered what UTA's role has been in helping with the interlodge planning efforts regarding COVID.
I can answer that a bit as well. So Trustee Carlton Christensen and I and a few others from UTA have met with Alta, the mayor of Alta, and others, talking about that exact issue and strategizing about what we would do in the event that there needed to be an evacuation. And those conversations are ongoing. Clearly, this idea of limiting ridership on our buses, there would need to be exceptions where other safety considerations come into play. For example, needing to evacuate the canyon quickly. And so we will plan to do all of our mask requirements and cleaning protocol and all of that, the air ventilation systems to be able to move people, evacuate people if and when necessary, while also trying to keep them safe. So some good conversations there, and I think we're ready for it.
Lauren, could I just ask a little follow-up on that? Might that mean that I used to work at Snowbird years and years ago, and I remember those nights and sleeping in the hallway and hundreds of people everywhere, strange accommodations, because they aren't, you know, that's not safe for anyone. Might that mean the UTA needs to, can you see something in my screen? It seems like there's something interrupting. Sorry.
She's cute.
She is cute. It's a good thing, Carlton. Might UTA need to work to flex buses in there in rapid fashion, anticipating a canyon closure in a way that we haven't ever had to do before? And how do we prepare the system for that, if so?
Yes, so we have extra buses available to us this year that were due to be replaced this ski season, but we're hanging on to them so that we can have buses and operators available to flex. As you say, that's a good word. Not only for canyon closures, but simply busy powder days where there are a lot of riders needing transit service, and so we can have those available quickly during those peak hours, particularly on the end of the day when a lot of people are trying to leave the canyon in a narrow window of time. So yeah, we will have buses that we can flex in and out of service pretty quickly.
I really appreciate that information. Thanks, Lauren.
One other discussion that is early, Mayor Mendenhall, is, you know, in a worst case scenario, that if there's a bus up at the top and no ability to go down the canyon, maybe they could shuttle them to Snowbird, who's probably not at 100% capacity. And maybe there's some places at Snowbird that they could shelter in place until the road became passable.
This is Mayor Hale. What about the city of Cottonwood Heights and Sandy that are at the mouth of those canyons? When the canyon is deliberately slow, the resorts are not receiving as many, the buses are full, and parking becomes an extreme premium. What plans have we got to work with that with our bus system, if any? Thank you.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe Andrea can help on this, but I think communication will be the key for our customers to know what their options are, that hopefully they can find other locations to wait for the bus. We have multiple park and ride lots that they can utilize more than just at the mouth of the canyon. And so that's what I would say is communication, real-time communication with the apps that Andrea mentioned, and texting programs that we have to inform them of what their options are. I think that will be the key. I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at, but that's what comes to mind when I heard your question.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that just quickly to Lauren's point, that is correct. We have provided customized information to each of the counties with respect to the resorts. As I mentioned, advising people of off-peak days and off-peak hours, as well as alternative parking lots that don't tend to fill up as fast. And so we have that information available on our website and our tools, but we've also provided it to the resorts so they can send that out to their season ticket holders and to their employees and things like that. So we're doing our best to communicate and disperse the loads as best we can.
Hey, Andrea, can I chime in? We are working directly with UDOT. UDOT has a crisis team with each of the ski resorts at the top of the ski resort and the bottom of the ski resort. So anytime there is road closures, delays, or slowing, UDOT will actually let people know on the BMS signs if traffic is delayed or slowed. They'll push them down Wasatch Park Boulevard, and then we've got a general hashtag that's pound Cottonwoods, and all that information will flow through UDOT and feed out to the ski resorts and feed out through our website to let people know when there's any type of delays. And then our TCC group is going to be monitoring those channels along with our social media strategists to let people know when parking areas are full or alternative ways that they can use to get up to the ski resort during that time period. So we're working very, very heavily with UDOT and the ski resorts to convey that information to everyone.
Thank you.
Anything else on these items?
If not, that concludes the agency report.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 7. It's a couple of resolutions. It's resolution AR 2020-11-01, resolution appointing the 2021 officers, and resolution AR 2020-11-02, resolution giving notice and setting regular meeting dates for the calendar year 2021. Has everyone had a chance to look those over? Anyone have any issues or questions about either of those resolutions?
Mr. Chair, this is Clint Smith. I'm just trying to get back down to it in my packet. If I remember correctly, don't we need to make a nomination in terms of the officers for next year?
Yes, if everybody has got it up where they can see it. What we talked about last year was what we kind of talked about doing going forward was the vice chair would serve up as the chair, and the second vice chair would move up to the vice chair. We would need to make a nomination for the second vice chair for the next year, if that's how everyone wants to still proceed.
Yeah,
that's totally up to the committee.
I'll just weigh in since I was the one that asked the initial question. I still am supportive of really kind of following that format moving forward. I think it provides good continuity for our board, good continuity with in terms of our interactions with the trustees and our executive director. And I think that's an important thing as we continue to deal with the business that we're asked to at the advisory level, is to really continue a process that provides that continuity moving forward. And I think it provides a good opportunity for each of the board members, really, opportunity to serve in various positions as they come available and to move through those positions that are on there. So it's something that I'm still in support of. And I'll let the other members of the, board weigh in if they'd like to, but I also am prepared to make a nomination as well.
Is there any further discussion on the process or the way we laid it out from last year? Is everyone comfortable going forward with that format?
If you're ready for a motion, Mr. Chair, I'll make it.
All right, go ahead.
I move that we approve Resolution AR 2020-11-01, the resolution appointing officers for the year 2021 as it has been presented.
All right, and then we're approving the format, I guess, in that motion, and then we'll take the nomination for. Is that what you mean, Mayor Hell?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So Mayor Hell's made a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, Smith, I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm prepared to make a nomination for the second vice to serve as that officer in that position for next year, and I'd like to nominate Mayor Julie Fulmer to serve in that position.
All right, so we have a nomination of Mayor Julie Fulmer. I guess we probably need a second if we're going to follow the sort of way we do it. Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Mayor Craythorne.
Mayor Craythorne's on the second. All right, so now we've got a viable motion ready to be discussed. Is there any discussion or comments or anyone wants to make on the nomination?
Julie, are you good with that?
Yes, thank you. That's very kind of both of you, and I'm up for it. Thanks, Aaron.
That's very nice of Mayor Mendenhall to check, because she might have thought you could have got bushwhacked there, but you know how it goes.
Right. I am still a male, but I am smart enough to know to ask that question before I just throw them under the bus.
Well, I didn't ask if you asked, Clint.
All right, any further discussion? I personally think Julie will be outstanding, and she's definitely a hard worker and very engaged and on top of everything. So it will be benefit. It'll be a great benefit for us to have her there. So that's awesome. If you're willing to serve, that's great.
Thanks.
All right. So all in favor of Mayor Julie Fulmer as being the second vice chair for the 2020 officers, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, the voting is unanimous. Congratulations, Julie. Next item is resolution AR 2020-1102, setting the calendar. Has everyone had a chance to look that over? Is there any major heartburn with the calendar dates?
I make a motion that we accept the dates as listed in that AR 2020-1102.
I'll second that. This is Julie.
All right, we have a motion by Karen, a second by Julie to approve resolution 2020-1102. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, seeing none, that resolution passes unanimously as well. That takes us to item number 8 on our agenda. It's the capital development consultation and resolutions. AR 2020-11-03, resolution approving the proposed capital development plan for the Mid-Valley Connector Bus Rapid Transit Project, and recommending approval of the authority's Board of Trustees. And then item B is AR 2020-901, amended resolution approving the revised draft 2021-25 capital plan and recommending approval by the authority's Board of Trustees. And we have Mary DiLoretto heading that discussion. Are you ready, Mary?
Good morning, Chair, Council members. Yes, so today I'm going to present the capital development plan for the Mid-Valley Connector Bus Rapid Transit Project. Also with us today are representatives from Taylorsville City. And when I'm done with my presentation, I'm going to ask if they have any comments to provide. Can I have the next slide, please? So in addition to Taylorsville City, who's a major proponent of this project, other project partners include West Valley City and Murray City, as well as Salt Lake Community College, UDOT, Wasatch Front Regional Council, and UTA. Next slide, please. So as you remember, back in last year, we presented the locally preferred alternative for the Mid-Valley BRT project. But at that time, we did not have a funding plan in place. So we could not adopt the project plan, but we did, as a council, you did adopt the locally preferred alternative. So just as a reminder, an overview of the LPA is what we call it, locally preferred alternative. It is a 7-mile bus rapid transit corridor that will start at the Murray Central Station and end at the West Valley Track Station, serving Salt Lake Community College and a number of other stops along the way. Just under 1.5 miles would be dedicated bus lanes, 14 stations, and then the frequency, we'd either have 10-minute frequencies in peak or 15 minutes, depending on the ridership demand. And then depending on whether we go to 10 or 15 minutes, we'd need, at the 10-minute frequency, we'd need more buses. We'd need 11 buses, and then at the 15, we'd only need 8. And then as well, you could see the boardings, depending on the frequencies, we estimate between 2,200 and 3,100 boardings per day. Can I have the next slide, please? So going back in the little project history, back in 2008, a locally preferred alternative had been selected, but it only included the section from the Murray Hub to the Salt Lake Community College. And we originally did a local environmental document, what was completed in 2013. And at that time, based on the FTA guidelines, Federal Transit Administration's guidelines, it did not look like a good fit for federal funding. So Taylorsville City started trying to piece different funding together for that project. Then back in 2017, the project was reconfigured to also include connection to West Valley Hub. So because we extended the project, we had to do another environmental document, another local environmental document, and that was completed in 2019. And the outcome for that was the LPA that I just showed you on the previous slide. Since that time, Taylorsville City has applied for state TTIF funds, and they were able to receive a $22.8 million allocation for the project. And now some of the FTA guidance has changed, and also that we have such a good local match, this project now looks much more competitive to receive federal funding. Can I have the next slide, please? So here is the proposed funding plan. The total project, including the 3 hubs, one at Murray Central, one at West Valley, and one at Salt Lake Community College, as well as the buses and all the project components, would be a total of $84.2 million, and that includes $5 million worth of in-kind right-of-way. So you can see the funding sources identified. It would be about $6.8 million total from Salt Lake County. The local city partners have also provided match. In-kind right-of-way, Taylorsville City has provided right-of-way, as well as, it's not shown on here, but Taylorsville City has also provided a lot of the funding to get the studies to this point. And then the TTIP, the state funding, is $22.8 million. And with that, we also have a federal grant from the STP funds of $2 million. So with that, we would be asking for another $47 million from the FTA for a Small Starts grant. And that would put it at about a 56% match, federal versus local. And that is really competitive for Small Starts. Can I have the next slide, please? So the next steps is we're presenting it here. We have included the Mid-Valley Connector project in the 2021 to 2025 capital plan, and I'll be presenting that a little bit in the next presentation, how we've included this new cost. And then after we receive your input on the plan, we'll bring it back to the UTA board for their review and approval. And then once approved, we will start to enter the FTA project development process. And that is the first step required to get federal Small Starts funding. And also, once we're in project development, any expenditures on the project, either the design portion, anything we spend, will be eligible for the federal funding and to count as match. And based on the schedule I'll show you on the next slide, we anticipate getting a grant in early 2023. So here's the schedule. It shows us initiating the process to enter project development right now, and then we would need to do the environmental document again, even though we've already done it twice. Both times it has been the local process. So in order to get federal funds, we would have to do the federal process for the environmental document. And we think that would go pretty smoothly because we already have all the information. We would just be putting it into the federal format. And then once we're in project development and the environmental is done, then we would be able to start doing some activities that UTA allows prior to receiving the grant. So there are some utility work they'll let us do. We would go into final design. We could start procuring the buses, which usually takes a year or so to get the buses or more. And we could also, once the design was far enough along, the final design, we'd be able to start acquiring the needed right-of-way. Early construction activities could start in early 2022, and then we would anticipate the grant in early 2023 and project construction completed sometime in 2024. Kevin, next slide, please. So that is my presentation. If you have any questions, and then also I would like to offer up for, I think Mayor Overson is on the line from Taylorsville, or anybody else from Taylorsville who might want to say something about the project. So are there any questions?
Mayor Overson, did you want to chime in? Are you on the call?
I'd be delighted. Thank you for that presentation. I think you've articulated that so well. As you see, this has been a project on our drawing board since 2008. We're really excited about this. 4700 South is a major corridor in our city and a vital east-west connection. So we're excited to see this move forward. As was explained, this connects Murray to West Valley, and there are a lot of opportunities along this route. There's the state campus in Taylorsville. There's the new LDS temple that's been announced on 4700 South. This connects to Salt Lake Community College, to Utah State University, their online satellite, Sorensen Research, plus just a great opportunity for redevelopment for some housing component along with this. I think this is just a great opportunity, not just in our city, but valley-wide, a great connection. Thank you for your consideration.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions on this resolution?
Mayor Walker, may I?
Yes.
Okay, Senator Wayne Harper here. We really appreciate what UTA and our partners have been doing the last several years on this issue. We think it's now right, federalizing the program and going forward. We've got great commitment from UTA to do it. Mayor Overson summarized things well. This is a wonderful partnership. This is one of a number of BRTs and other projects that need to move forward, and I wholeheartedly endorse it and appreciate the advisory committee's consideration and involvement and support of this.
Thank you, Senator Harper. Anyone else? All right, is there a motion on resolution AR 2020-11-03?
I move that we go ahead in support of this motion.
All right, is there a second?
Mr. Chair, Smith, I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Karen, second by Clint. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right, seeing none opposed, that resolution passes unanimously. Next resolution, Mary, are you ready? AR 20-9-01.
Yes, thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? So as you recall, back in September, I presented the draft 5-year capital plan to the council. And I think there were no changes recommended, so we brought that back to the board. But since that time, several updates have been requested to that 5-year plan. And these updates include some proposed carryover requests for 10 projects, the addition of 1 new project, the redistribution of funds for 2 projects, and change in budgeted amounts for 2 projects. So let me give you more detail about those. Can I have the next slide, please? So for the 10 projects that we're requesting carry forward adjustments, all of these projects were anticipated to be completed in 2020, so no budget was anticipated in 2021. So therefore, these projects would not be able to continue in 2021 until a carryover was completed, and that usually takes a couple months. So because we want there to be seamless continuation of these projects, we're requesting that these projects be included in the 2021 budget and reduce. We last week did an amendment to the 2020 budget to reduce these same costs. So it'd be no net increase to the 2021 budget or to the overall budget. It would just shift these items from 2020 to 2021. There is one exception to that. There's something called new FLHQ space planning, where we initially had a budget of 7. We anticipated it was going to be 45,000, but it was actually, I'm sorry, it looks like there's a typo in that table. It should be saying 35 and 45. But we are adding an additional 10,000 to that budget because there was, we got the contract, and once we got under contract, it was 10,000 more than estimated in the cost estimate. So those are the carryover with just a $10,000 difference overall. Can I have the next slide, please? And then these are the project changes, what we made. So the suicide prevention project is a brand new project that would be added in 2021. And that was, we got a grant from FTA for $250,000, 200 to be exact, 224,000, and there would be a local match of 56,000. So that is a new project, what was not currently anticipated. So we have added that to the 2021 plan. And then the rail rehab replacement project, we've actually reduced that by 200,000. And that's because, again, when we amended the 2020 budget last week, we reduced it. We increased it by 200,000 from our contingency to do some work within the Jordan River Service Center that we needed to have done sooner. So since that work was moved up to 2020, we were able to reduce the need in the 2021 budget. The electric buses, the 20 electric buses that we're getting through the Volkswagen agreement, that project budget has not changed at all. We've just shifted it to 2021, the funds for 2021, I'm sorry, we shifted the 2021 funds to 2022 because we would not get those buses delivered to 2022. So we do not need the funds in 2021, we need them in 2022. So the overall, you could see in the 5-year plan, there's no change to the budget there, but we've just shifted dollars. So there would be, you'd notice the change in 2021. The straight current mitigation project is the next one. Overall, for the 5-year plan, there's no change. However, we've redistributed the funds over the 5 years to be more in line with what we think we'll actually spend. So next year, there will be a reduction of 175,000, but overall, there will be no net change to that project. And then the Mid-Valley BRT project, you can see that's where there is the biggest change. We have, assuming that we will get the small starts grant and we'll be able to add all the project components back in, we've distributed that funds over the 5 years, and that's where the biggest change is. So overall, there is a $23 million less will be in the 2021 budget, but for the 5 years, there's a $50 million increase to the whole 5-year plan. Can I have the next slide, please? So this shows you the summary. In For the next year, there's an overall, for the 5-year plan, I'm sorry, for the 5-year plan, there's an overall $50 million increase over the 5 years. But of that, there's only a $6.9 million increase in FTA funds of UTA funds, because the rest is anticipated grants that we would be receiving. Can I have the next slide, please? So the next step, so we are presenting this to you today for your consultation. And if you are fine with it or any input you might have, we will bring it back to the board on December 2nd for their final review and approval. And then the first year of the 2021 through 2025 year capital plan will be incorporated into UTA's annual budget. And I think the next presentation is going to be Bill Green presenting that annual budget, and you'll see the 2021 capital projects included in that budget. So that is all I have. Do we have any questions on those proposed changes?
Questions or comments for Mary? All right, seeing no questions or comments, is there a motion on AR 2020-09-01?
I'll make that motion. So sorry.
Go ahead, I'll be your second.
All right, we had Eric and then we had Karen. Eric is the motion, Karen's the second.
I think that was Aaron as the
Oh,
second.
all right, Eric's the motion, Aaron's the second. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's
all right, thank
right.
you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, seeing none opposed, the resolution passes unanimously. Thank you, Mary. Item number 9 is next, and it's our budget consultation, agency 2021 budget. We'll have Mr. Bill Green. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Chair Walker and Advisory Council members. For the record, Bill Green, Chief Financial Officer with UTA. Next slide, please. So when we started developing the budget earlier this year, we settled on some key budget strategy. Obviously, the number one goal was fiscal responsibility, and the budget you have before you is balanced both in 2021 and in the 5-year plan. Excuse me, the 5-year plan. The tentative budget document is included in your package beginning on page 62. Early in 2020, in April, in order to limit the spread of COVID-19 and keep customers and employees safe and respond to the dramatic losses in ridership, UTA enacted some service reductions, cutting service by about 50%, including reduced trip frequencies and span of service on bus, tracks, and front runner service, suspended some commuter bus routes, and ended Saturday front runner service early. Eddie touched on some of the drops, but system-wide, we kind of reached a trough, and there's a graph in here package showing we bottomed out at about 68% for total ridership in April. 4 months later in August, as a result of increasing ridership numbers, public feedback, and changes regarding COVID policies, much of the service that was changed or reduced in April was restored or even improved. As a result of the August changes, UTA service levels were restored to about 91% of what it was before the pandemic, and this budget reflects a continuation of that service level at about 91% of the pre-pandemic levels. You'll see there that we also took efforts to centralize budgets to kind of improve clarity, and again, you'll see a theme here, making the most with what we have. So centralizing, there was a lot of centralizing of budgets and costs in the IT area, transferring funds from multiple departments so that we can better manage that money and get bigger bang for the buck. There's centralized hardware, software, and so forth, cellular lines, and decrease in some contract services we were able to achieve. And we repurposed funds, utilizing savings. A great example is utilizing savings from the operator trainee wages and benefits to fund additional employee programs, and seeding the new maintenance apprenticeship program, which I'll touch on in just a moment. Next slide, please. Here's the key budget assumptions. I'll just touch on a couple quickly. You can see that the labor costs, the labor and fringe, reflect the new collective bargaining agreement that we entered into and was signed in October. Fuel prices, we're actually dropping the budgeted number from $2.50 a gallon for diesel, which has been in place for the last several years, down to $2.25. Currently, just for your information, we paid about $1.45 a gallon on average in 2020. And then also we're reducing the estimate on gasoline as well. Sales tax projected rates. I came from Washington, and I was just amazed at the resiliency of the Utah economy and the incredibly strong sales tax numbers that we're getting. As we project into 2021, we're projecting a 5% increase over 2020 levels for sales tax overall. That is less than the range that we've seen from the Governor's Office of Management and Budget. I've seen numbers anywhere from 5.2 to 6%, so we think we're being fairly conservative in that area. Passenger fares continue to reflect lower ridership as experienced in 2020, and we'll hold those numbers constant for 2021. A particular note at the very bottom there is the CARES Act. UTA received, as part of a federal grant program, $187 million early in the pandemic. We're anticipating we're going to spend about $86 million this year to keep service going. We're spending on operating costs, and we will exhaust the rest of the funding in 2021. Next slide, please. So the key service budget changes in 2021, I talked on earlier that we're keeping the 91% service levels, but just so you know, ridership, we budgeted in 2020 at about 43 million riders. We're now budgeting in 2021 at about 20 million. Service hours were roughly 2 million hours in 2020 budget. We're now projecting, we're budgeting about 1.8 million. Service miles are down from 32.5 in the 20 budget to about 29.3 in the 2021 budget. A couple of key themes in this budget: navigating the new normal. You can see there's a lot of budget. There are some budget increases in addition to decreases. Moving operational savings into a service restoration fund. And what that is as we, and I'll touch on it a little bit later, as the region reacts to and recovers from COVID, we want to be positioned to be able to react with them and perhaps make service changes, service additions as needed. We budgeted additional $500,000 for pandemic supplies, increased rail cleaning, and added 12 service employees. So you can see a real emphasis on keeping the system safe for both our passengers and operators. There's also a heavy emphasis in this budget on asset management and bringing the system to a state of good repair. And I'll touch on that in just a moment. Next slide, please. So on the operations side, there's a number of initiatives to purchase or upgrade hardware. I touched on it briefly. Hardware and software, develop systems and so forth, modernize software. A lot going on in the IT area. There's increased training and support for the Rail Maintenance Apprenticeship Program, a program we're really excited about. And again, this emphasis on state of good repair and asset management. Next slide, please. On the head count, I'll touch on this in a little bit more detail in a slide coming up, but basically, the CARES Act really allowed us the luxury of maintaining our operators and those frontline maintenance workers and our maintenance staff that are so critical to the operation of the system and so difficult to replace if you do let them go. So overall, there's a decrease of 33 FTEs, but we were able to basically maintain our staff that we had, our key operators and maintenance staff without any reductions, and we were able to accomplish the reductions primarily through attrition. Next slide, please. This is the current org chart that's reflected in the budget. There was some movement, a little bit of movement, but I think the major change is if you look on the right there, there's a new office of enterprise strategy that was accomplished basically through reorganization. This will include IT, operations analysis and solutions, risk and policy and cultural and continuous improvement. I think this will allow us to elevate decision-making around IT, data and risk, and better use data and systems to drive decisions and continue to emphasize the culture of continuous improvement here at UTA. Next slide, please. By mode, you can see there's a $10 million change year over year, and it's primarily in four areas. $3.2 million change in light rail. That just reflects we were capturing light rail state of good repair activities in the capital program, and it should be more correctly captured as a maintenance activity, so we're moving it from capital to operating. $5 million in non-departmental contingencies at the bottom there under the support of the non-departmental line. This is, I mentioned earlier about the contingency where we're setting aside funds for emerging needs as the region continues to react and recover from COVID. There's $3 million in a $3 million increase in operations support. And again, getting back to this emphasis on asset management and state of good repair. And then $2 million in admin. And again, mostly we touched on that earlier with the consolidation of IT activities and so forth. Next slide, please. Just a kind of a graphic depiction of the table you saw earlier. Operations is 79%. And if you actually look at the operations administration piece, that'd be closer to, it would be 84%. So just a graphic depiction of how the money is spent by operating function. Next slide, please. So you can see here, this is another cut of the same data. And what we do here, this you can see, like most transit agencies around the nation, about 72% of our expenses are on labor, wages, and fringe. And then you can see the other categories. You can see fuels. You can see a big reduction in fuel, primarily due to the assumption of lower fuel prices, and also the consumption is going to be down based on some of the service reductions that we're that are in place currently. Next slide, please. So this is a breakdown of the FTEs, and you can see the operations and service reduction of about 33, again, achieved through attrition. And the most of it is kind of, moving in and out. The people office there, we're moving the staff in. That's a reduction from the operations folks for the training for operators, which we're going to make up for, and is contained in the operations group, a net for the new creation of the maintenance apprenticeship program. Next slide, please. Mary did a great job covering the capital. I would say the big change here in asset management is primarily due to a delay in a bus purchase, but I think Mary did a much more detailed and better job than I could do on this slide. Next slide, please. So next steps, pending your input, we'll go back to the board on December 9th and we'll present the budget with your input. And then on December 16th, we will present to the board for the final approval of the budget request. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Green? I had one, Bill, when you, on the line on the budget, if you go back to that slide on what we budget for each division of service, bus, light rail, front runner, the bus line includes BRTs that are active, right?
Yes.
That 108 million is not just, it includes all bus.
Yes.
What component of that, do you have any idea, is BRT?
I don't have that, but I can get that for you though.
That'd be interesting to know. Maybe you could break that out next time, as you know, as we seem to be moving towards BRTs as maybe our preferred modes for the next little while. It might be helpful so the public can see exactly what that's costing, a bang for the buck they're getting, because I think it's a pretty good bang for the buck, and as far as that goes. But when you talk about fuel reduction or the fuel reduction costs, you're just basing that on like a futures market prediction, or how do you decide it's going down?
Well, what we did for this projection was we took a 5-year trend, and it's in your packets there. I don't have the page right in front of me. We took a 5-year average and we looked at that. That was much lower than the 2.25, and we're basically used that number, and then experience we've had to date. We don't use any of the futures projections or anything like that. It was more of a moving average of what we historically spent.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That moves us to item number 10, which is the service plan consultation for the 2021 through 2025 mobility service plan. And Laura Hansen's got that one for us. Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. It's nice to be coming back to you with some progress on this. Next slide, please, Jen. As you recall, last time I came to you, we were in the process of kind of pivoting from our service choices planning effort into a updated version of a 5-year service plan, which you all will recommend to the Board of Trustees later this or early next year is the plan. Developed within the COVID pandemic period, we had a couple of goals with this plan. We wanted to increase ridership overall. We wanted to strengthen customer confidence and align our services with the resources that we have available during this unique time when our finances are somewhat uncertain. As you think about this 5-year service plan, consider it as something more like a vision of where we think we're headed, rather than a prescriptive list of changes. Nothing's decided at this point. It's more of a roadmap of where we think we're headed. We do not plan implementation of any of the concepts included in this plan for 2021. We hope to start working on that in early 2022. Next slide, please. I'm going to go over just kind of a quick flyby of the various different sections in the plan. We have limited time, and so I won't go into a lot of detail, but encourage you all to look through the copy in your packet. One of the first sections in the document is a review of our planning process. The goal here is to really make it transparent and clear to our stakeholders and the public how we make planning decisions and where different stakeholders and members of the public have opportunities to contribute and provide feedback into that planning process. Next slide, please. The next section is a series of guiding framework elements. These are kind of the principles or the main ideas that we were thinking about as we were developing this plan and really guide what's within it. The first of which is being respectful and incorporating the feedback that we received through that service choices planning effort. We all spent a lot of time talking with you about that in the past, and I think we received well over 3,500 pieces of public input into that planning process. And so we've embodied those ideas here. In this plan, you'll also see a shift towards more system-wide planning. Rather than thinking about each individual geographic area or each individual mode as their own unique piece, we've really been focusing on that regional connectivity. We've recommended a core route network within this planning effort. And a lot of this is really building on the great success that we've had with Salt Lake City with the sponsored service that they've done and the frequent transit network, or FTN, that's identified in their transit master plan. And so that idea, it seems to be working really well, and we'd like to expand some of those concepts throughout our system. All-day service, we have seen a shift in our riders from traditional peak morning and afternoon trips to a more steady all-day stream of demand. That's even been heightened during the pandemic period, and so we expect that to continue in some ways. Expanded hours, earlier and later hours, new technologies, new things like our microtransit. Can we use that in new ways within our service area? And you heard a little bit about some new projects that are coming on board, such as the Mid-Valley Connector. This plan starts to lay the foundation for those new projects. We start to develop travel patterns and align our local bus service on those proposed project alignments. Next slide. We are growing quickly. We know that what's in this plan is not going to be perfect, which is why it is a map and not a list of specific changes, or it's a vision. So we want to anticipate that growth and be flexible and allow for changes over time. We'll be updating this plan every 2 years. But right now within this plan, think of it as a series of change concepts. The lines that you see on the map should really be viewed as corridors to be served rather than final route alignments. And there's a lot of engagement and work and additional analysis that will happen before anything's implemented. Next slide, please. I'd like to go over just a quick highlight of kind of the main elements in the plan for each geographic area. Starting with the northern part of our service area, we are proposing the implementation of the Ogden WSU BRT project, the construction of a new transit hub at the D Events Center, 15-minute service on State Street and Main Street between Farmington and Ogden, new bus service between Ogden and Pleasant View frontrunner stations, local bus connections in a number of cities, streamlined connections to the Roy frontrunner station. Next slide, please. Improved connections from frontrunner to the University of Utah and Research Park. You'll see this gray sort of oval on the map, and that represents an innovative transportation or transit solution area. This could be something like our microtransit pilot that we're currently using in the southern part of Salt Lake County. So we see new places for that in North Ogden and also, North Weber and also South Davis counties. We'll adjust local routes to prepare for the new South Davis connector, all-day service on many routes all around, and then we continue to acquire right-of-way in Box Elder County. Next slide. In Salt Lake and Tooele, we're focusing on the west side of Salt Lake County with new connections to the airport, the inland port, and you can see some of the corridors highlighted there. We're increasing the frequency and hours of service on several routes. I mentioned the core route network. We're adjusting local bus routes to prepare for the Mid-Valley connector, also service on 5600 West and the South Davis PRT. We've improved connections between Tooele and Salt Lake County, and also some service in Rose Park and Glendale as part of the Salt Lake City Transit Master Plan. Next slide, please. We're also working on connections from frontrunner to the University Research Park. We are proposing to make the current microtransit pilot in South Salt Lake County a permanent thing and keep that going, and exploring some new places where we might be able to include models like that, such as the Tooele Valley. We're working with Salt Lake City right now on a new transit hub on the west side of the city and improving all-day service on a number of routes. Next slide, please. This is a quick map of that area. You'll see these little pins or flags. The black darker one represents the new West Side hub that we're working on, and the other pins represent places where we anticipate some additional study and analysis needing to happen. Next slide, please. And in Utah County, we are planning to open the Vineyard Frontrunner station and adjust our local bus service to serve that new station. There's a number of route improvements throughout the network in this area and new innovative mobility solutions in both West Provo and Thanksgiving Point. You'll see the Central Corridor BRT alignment, or the Central Corridor alignment that's being evaluated right now. We're starting to lay the foundation for that as well. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that we have a number of places where we think there's some further analysis that's needed. We were not able to answer all of the questions or get all of the input that we needed from community members in this quick iteration of this plan. And so we plan to come back to the community and do a lot more focused analysis in certain areas. And those include all of those innovative mobility zones, South Davis County, Southwest Salt Lake County, the West Bench, Research Park. We're working in the Cottonwood Canyons area, Point of the Mountain, Eagle Mountain, and Saratoga Springs, Central Corridor, South Utah County, and we actually missed one on this list, which would also be the Inland Port area. So throughout the next year, we'll be working heavily on these small area studies, and the results of that will roll into the next update of this master plan. Next slide, please. Another idea that we've introduced in this planning effort is really focusing on those who depend on transit the very most and making sure that we are meeting the needs of the populations that really have no other transit alternative. We plan in coming years to conduct a series of transportation equity gap analyses to make sure that we're meeting those needs, we know where the issues are, and also better engaging underrepresented communities and allowing them to have a voice to say, these are the needs that we have. How can you help us with that? Next slide, please. We also have a vision section where we look out into the future of a variety of other projects that are happening, expanded rail and bus service, a cleaner fleet, more electric buses. There's an interesting map that you can click on that will show you a whole variety of other planning projects that are underway at UTA with our partners. Next slide, please. And quick timeline. So our plan for you all today, we're asking you to essentially endorse this vision, say, yeah, I feel like this is the direction that UTA should be heading. Again, keeping in mind that we're at sort of a 50,000 foot level here. These are just concepts, and every line and idea presented in this plan will go through further revision. With your approval, we would like to make this available for stakeholder feedback and also public comment throughout the rest of this year and into early next year. And then we plan to come back to you at your meeting in February to present a final plan that's been refined a little bit with feedback from both you, the stakeholder groups that you represent, and any other comments that we receive. And then move forward with approval of that with the Board of Trustees, and then really jump right into getting to work on those small area studies and doing a little bit more research. And if you could go to the last slide, please, Shannon. Once we finish this, we plan to get into a regular rhythm of 1 year of updating the 5-year plan, the next year doing small area studies, the next year updating the 5-year plan, and then back to small area studies. So kind of a year on, a year off. So I think there's lots of opportunity. We plan to update this every couple of years. I mentioned again that we don't really anticipate implementation of the ideas in this until 2022. We're really focusing on stabilizing our financial resources and our labor resources in light of the pandemic, and then we'll be ready to go after we've had a little bit of time to let things settle down. And with that, I believe it's my last, that's my last slide. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Yes, Mayor.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I was fascinated by, and I'll look forward to being able to dig in a little deeper on your slide around the density of population per acre in low opportunity areas. And I wondered how, perhaps it's rhetorical at this point as you're about to take the steps to zoom in on the process, but I wonder how UTA would propose prioritizing or ask the community to help communities to help prioritize the differences in density versus income, proximity to transit stops, and regularity of those transits, what the transit connections are at that point. I'm also wondering about I'll leave it rhetorical at this point also, but what is sure to be some shift and transition in the way people work. And we know that we have a lot of frontline workers in a disproportionate amount of frontline workers in lower income and lower opportunity areas defined by HUD than we do in more affluent areas of cities. But how we transition the workplace, how many people end up staying at home to work half of the time instead of, and how that contributes potentially. So I'm interested in looking at those demographic lenses to anticipate either stability of that transit market, so to speak, or some potential dramatic shifts.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head with the equity and kind of looking where our underrepresented populations, what their transit needs, and providing opportunities for those communities to express what their needs are, where gaps and barriers exist. And so I think we're right on the same page with you on that, and I'm excited to see what sort of findings we find from that as well. And then in terms of the pandemic and changing travel patterns, it's really fascinating. As we were developing this plan, we looked at a lot of ridership data, travel patterns, and we did see quite a number of shifts. We saw a lot of routes that were really traditionally great routes for us. They were always packed, but we found that they were really serving very much a traditional 9-to-5 kind of briefcase commuter market, and a lot of those people have been teleworking. At the same time, we saw other routes that just were packed to the gills throughout the whole pandemic, and really highlighted there are a lot of people that depend on public transit, essential workers getting to and from every day. And we've really worked to sort of double down in this plan on those types of routes. So you'll see a shift away from
a lot of, kind of express commuter services towards more steady all day, higher frequency routes. But there's a balance there always, right? And so there's still a commuter market we need to serve as well.
I appreciate that, Laura. And I'll just mention as an anecdote that of the Salt Lake City, we have over 3,000 employees. And I would say, of course, not all of them are working from home by any means, but over 1,000 are right now. And of that population, at least 3/4 are desirous of a continuation of part-time work from home, that there's some hybrid model coming into the office half the time or less. And the CO2 savings that we've been able to calculate are mind-blowing, let alone all of the other savings that we could imagine in reinventing our office space. But we're not alone in that, as I talk to major employers downtown.
So this is Carolyn Gonot. I just want to say, Laura, one of the focus on these small area studies is also to look at the gaps and some of those routes, particularly during the pandemic. As she said, some of these, we did see who these essential workers are. Students still rely on a lot of our service as well, and I think they will be back, and we have seen that. So we'll continue to take a look at that. I think what's really key, we reorganized a little within UTA just to make sure that we can start really. Laura's focus is going to be heavily on planning and engaging in the community, reaching in and trying to really determine how do we plan for this, how do we cover those gaps, how do we look at equity, and making sure that we provide the service that we need to these people who depend on us. And that's a lot of it. In the meantime, also trying to look at what being responsive to these changes in how our market's going to be looking in the future. So there's been a little change in our organization, and a lot of Laura's focus is going to be on it. And we're really excited about this next year or so, really digging in deep on some of these areas.
Anyone else have anything on this item? Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. I should note, one quick thing that I forgot is this plan is presented in a couple different formats. We'll have a print version that you have a draft copy of that in your packets, but we also plan an online sort of interactive ESRI story map version of this. And so we'll make sure you all have that link access to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Item number 11 is next. It's a discussion item. It's the South Salt Lake County Microtransit Pilot Report and survey results for the Q3. And it looks like Jaron Robertson's going to do that. Jaron, go ahead.
Thank you, council members. If we could advance the slide, thank you. This is a great timing. I just want to let everybody know that this Friday actually marks the 1-year mark since we launched this pilot. It's been a great success for UTA. Obviously, we've had to work through the COVID era, but our objective was to really pilot and test new and emerging technologies, first to find new and better ways to provide transit service to areas that just aren't able to utilize traditional fixed route services. And so with that, if you'll move ahead to the next slide, please. As I quickly mentioned, we did see a significant decline in ridership, but what has been great about the service is it's allowed us to adapt in real time, and it's very dynamic. And so we have been able to make adjustments to the service very quickly while maintaining the same quality of service to our customers. And so with that, we've seen pretty good significant savings to the pilot while we continue to provide service and, again, maintain these qualities of service to our customers. If you'll advance to the next slide. I wanted to share some of our ridership performance throughout the pilot's performance since we launched in November. And some of these questions came up last time we talked about this. We are quickly approaching 60,000 trips on the service. We should hit that by the end of November, early December. We would have seen most likely a lot higher ridership had COVID not occurred. But as you've seen in some of the ridership statistics, since April, we've seen a pretty steady increase in ridership, about 16% per month. But unfortunately, we'll see a little bit of a level off of that as we've seen increased levels of COVID impact our community. I do want to highlight the wave trips, which are wheelchair accessible vehicle trips, very successful. We see really high demand for those trips. You can see September, we hit a really high number of 180 trips. So it's really important that we're able to provide this type of service to members of the community who may require some sort of mobility device. It's a really great feature as a service. Also want to highlight the shared rides portion of this trip, or the service. You can see is in February and March is really where we peaked prior to the COVID, and we were seeing just about 30% of our trips being shared rides, and that's really important from a public transit perspective as we look to reduce single occupancy vehicles and really trip chain and make sure that we're utilizing vehicles in the most efficient manner possible. And then finally, I also want to share this, what we call first mile, last mile connections. And so that is the percentage of trips that either start or end at one of our rail stations within the service area. And so really high levels pre-COVID, you can see we were above 50% in February of these trips starting or ending at a rail station. That has declined, as you can see, to about 30% at today's levels. Which also helps us see that people are adapting with the service and they might be using the service for more essential type trips. Next slide, please. Just a graphical representation of ridership there. You can see, again, February, March, really high ridership with the drop due to COVID. We did do some analysis a couple months ago using historical data to see what we project ridership to have looked like had COVID not hit. And we did come up with about 400 to 500 trips per day at this point in time, which exceeds the goals we had set for this service. So unfortunately, we've had to adapt, but that's kind of where we had seen the service going had COVID not hit. Next slide, please. One of my favorite slides to show, I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. If you look at the smaller picture on the left, the blue area is the service area for the microtransit service. So anywhere within that blue area, a person is eligible to take a trip through the mobile app. You can see our tracks lanes and front runner lane in there, and so the red line obviously being the red line in blue, and then the purple is a front runner. Now moving to the graphic to the right, what you're seeing is 1 day's trip data of what our customers were using the service for. And so you can see how they've really been able to use the service to move across the entire south end of the valley. If you look at the dark blue spots on this map, I'm guessing you can already guess what those are, and those are our rail stations. And so it's good graphical representation of how people are using the service to connect to our rail systems, but then they can use it for however they want, and it really changes the way mobility looks in the south end of the valley. And if you could picture trying to run a bus route through there, it's just almost impossible to show something like this. If you'd advance to the next slide, please. So quickly, just a couple next steps, and I did want to touch upon the survey we conducted in late July and early August. We did want to get some qualitative data regarding how our customers' experience is with the service and what ways we can improve it based upon their comments and feedback. And so we did conduct that survey again late July and early August. We sent that out to about 1,600 riders. We did not get quite the response rate we wanted. It was about a 5% response rate when we were hoping for 10%. Surveys can be a little bit difficult during COVID, but we did get a high level of positive feedback at about 88%. And we also saw a service rating of about 4.8 out of 5, which mirrors our in-app ratings. And so we really have a lot of positive attitude towards the service. In addition to that, we saw that people are shifting modes, and 98% of the respondents had used transit in the past, but we're seeing that most of them are shifting from driving a personal vehicle or using a ride-hailing service to this on-demand service. And so again, with that survey results too, we're also able to utilize some of that information to actually work with our partners at VIA and make improvements to the service. So we've been doing that since that survey, and there are various improvements that we look to integrate over the next year. Another highlight too, I want to make sure you're aware of, we have determined to extend the pilot through August of 2021. just to continue to evaluate and run the service. Given some of the challenges we've had with COVID, we think there's more opportunities to test the service and make improvements. Another large highlight for the service is we have developed an in-app feature with our partner Avia to actually accept and validate all UTA electronic fare media and our fare pay card. So without having any sort of validator on the vehicle, our customers can now input their EFC card or a fare pay card directly into the Avia app, and it will validate that as a form of payment in the service. We're one of the first transit agencies in the country to be able to do something like this. Next year, we'll be integrating with a transit app for trip discovery. We'll be looking to support first and last mile connections to paratransit services. And then as you heard in Laura's presentation, we're really looking at how microtransit might better serve some of the communities where we aren't just able to see good success with traditional fixed route service. So we will be looking to support those efforts as we continue to implement and plan as part of that 5-year service. So with that, you can go to the next slide. I believe I can answer any questions you may have.
I have a question, Jaron. Can you get this presentation to me or in a way that I think it would be important to maybe have city councils that are in this service area, in this pilot area, have someone from UTA go and present it to the city councils and the mayors so they can see how effective this little thing has been in this pilot area. And then maybe it's something you can take to other councils and mayors in the service areas that don't have it, that would like it. I know, I can tell you, I've had lots of people tell me how awesome this service is. And I mean, you just don't, people don't walk up to me and say, hey, the bus is awesome. But I've had people come up to me and say, wow, this Via thing, it's almost as good as Uber, but it's good enough for what we're doing. They love it. And I think you can see that they're riding to the hubs and then using it to get home, which is our goal, to get east-west movement. But I would love to get maybe a more succinct little presentation I'd like to go over my city council with. I think it would be good to go to Riverton and Harriman and all the other cities that are inside the service area and let them see what it's done. And then this seems like a viable thing moving forward, especially with the COVID, with the ability to deploy it easier than a bus system.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and we're definitely interested in looking into it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll just echo what you said. Obviously, from Harriman's side, this would be great information to be able to present to our council. But secondarily to that, I've had a lot of positive feedback received as well on this service because, as you all are well aware, out in Harriman, we don't have any transit stations. We don't have any defined bus routes. Really, this has been, obviously something we've looked at to help increase that ability out in that area. And I think your graphic that showed all of those trips on there was very telling of the ability that it does create within that defined geographical area, again, to use it and probably use it much more effectively and efficiently than just a defined bus route in that area. So I would love the presentation and the opportunity to have UTA come out and talk to us more about it at our council. But I think, again, a lot of positive feedback in our community about this program.
Mayor Walker and Councilmember Smith, if it's okay with you, I'll work with Jaron, and then we'll also reach out to your city councils and try to get on your agendas at a time frame that works for you.
I think we ought to present this to our state partners and show them how effective this has been and how easily deployed it's been as a way to, to show them that we're being innovative and serving the direct need right away, and not just always coming and asking for big projects and money, but show them something that's working. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I think we need to start tooting this or letting people know about it and talk about it in the context of how it's actually moving people around and they like it.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, appreciate that offer, Carlton. In fact, at our council meeting this evening, I will mention so that the staff there is prepared to have you reach out so we can get you scheduled sooner rather than later.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions, thoughts?
Mr. Mayor Hale, one day after we've got the finances all worked out, I'd love to have it migrate northward into a few other communities, Kearns all the way over to Cottonwood Heights and communities in between.
Agreed. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, this is Beth Holbrook. I just wanted to make a quick comment on dovetail off of Mayor Hale. I think that it's actually, I'd like to see it do these types of presentations, not only to the state, but to other areas as well. So I'm speaking for the North. Anyway, thank you.
I think we should also make it to the chambers of commerce. I know the South Valley Chamber would love to hear it. I think we just need to get the message out about how effective this has been. Let's go work.
Yeah, let's get Tooele and Box Elder counties in queue for those two. I think that it would be great for those areas.
Just Jaron can maybe also talk real quickly. This is Carolyn Godot about just that we are doing or have done sort of a study of where this might work in other locations, whether it be VIA or something else similar. So Jared, do you want to just make a few comments on that?
Yes, thank you. I was hopefully Bill will bring that up. We have done an assessment actually across the entire UTA service area, just looking at transit potential and transit propensity about how on-demand services and technologies like this might better service certain communities. And as we talk about, it's more of a coverage-based model. And so we have a good idea as we look across the entire service area where we might be able to launch or do further evaluation on demand services. And that is really highlighted in the theater service Laura just talked about. So as we continue to look at our objectives and priorities through the lifetime plan, we have a good foundation and baseline for where we might look to establish each of these services. So again, we have a good roadmap and a good plan, so we're able to move much quicker to determine our strategic objectives for the agency.
Yeah. So Jaron will be presenting something to the board on, I think, December 9th right now it's scheduled, on sort of where those other studies are, and we can send that out to the advisory council as well, or at least note where the link.
Let's present to MAG and Wasatch Front as well, and let their boards get to see it as well. I mean, I think it's a great way to disseminate good work and the options, because those are our partners, and they'd be great if they could get that a little presentation. Let's get on their agendas as well and make some presentation about it if we could. All right, anyone else? Are we ready to move on to item number, we're at 12 now. Hallelujah. Item number 12 is the other business, TOD workshop timing and format. As you guys all know, we've talked about getting together and having this TOD meeting. I personally think it's better if we're all in a room and we can interact. I mean, I suppose we could do it by Zoom, but if my attitude's been, and of course I won't be chair very shortly hereafter, but if we want to have it as a meeting where we can be together and interact in that way, I think it's more effective. But I guess it could be done on Zoom. So I guess this is probably my last meeting as chair. So I guess our new chair can decide if they want to do it different. But how would all of you like to do it? Would you like to still wait and see when COVID will allow us to meet, or do you want to plan it in a format like this?
I don't know, Mayor Walker, I'm not as maybe optimistic as some may be about setting a date in January or February to see get together. I think that I want to get the progress going. I'm willing to do it over Zoom, and it's hard for me to anticipate the numbers getting low enough that I think I'm going to feel comfortable going in a room with everybody for a couple of hours.
This is Mayor Hale. I support Mayor Mendenhall's evaluation.
Anyone else want to weigh in on it?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Clint Smith. I think we all long for the opportunity, obviously, to move past where we're at and to be able to meet together as a body again and really engage in the dialogue that comes from being all in the same room. But to their points, I think it's very difficult for us to be able to look ahead and know for certainty when that time will be. Obviously, we're very optimistic that those numbers will go down, that we'll see the vaccines start to become available, and obviously help us to get a hand on that. But I think it's going to take several months. So as a body, we just have to decide whether that's a topic that we want to continue to really kind of hold on until we feel like we're comfortable to get together, or if we should just, obviously get a meeting scheduled in this format so that we can have that discussion as it relates to TODs and be able to move that topic forward.
Well,
Chair?
I think go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think with the holidays and the first of the year comes a lot of busyness. I think it would be a good idea to look and see where things are looking with the COVID numbers come mid-January, and then maybe reassess and make that determination.
I think if you're okay with the format, this format, I think Mayor Mendenhall is probably right. We're at the level now where the positive rate's 25%. It's an exponential spread, so it's probably going to be more than a couple of months, I would imagine. But I think we could. Why don't we tentatively set something up for middle of February on the Zoom platform? See where it is. I mean, it probably can be done on Zoom. It's just nice to be able to, ask questions and do it. But we're probably not until February, March, or April, maybe March, hopefully. I don't know. But I know in our city, our numbers are up again, and we're without counting prison inmates, we're still one of the highest cities in the valley right now. You had the prison inmates in, which takes us up pretty far. But should we ask the staff to pick a date in February with the Zoom format and see where we're at?
I think it's a great suggestion. I think, try to identify some potential dates in February, and then we can we'll have more information, reassess, and determine what direction to go.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect, Mr. Aserson?
That was a motion. Sorry, I should have stated in that way. Thanks, Troy.
Is there a second to this concept of planning it for sometime in February?
I'll second that.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
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 Awesome. All right. The next item was our next meeting, which will be February 17th, 2021 at 1 p.m. Do we need to discuss that? Are we good on that, Jana? Seems fine to me. Maybe it'll be a couple days before we can do the TOD meeting that's out there. So, or maybe you do it in March. It's fine.
I think the February 17th meeting we already set back in one of our earlier motions, so I think I'll put that on our calendar and plan for that.
That's correct. Thanks, Karen.
All right. Does anyone have anything else?
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
That's an excellent motion. All in favor?
Wait, before you go there, hold on. Before you go there and close the meeting, I want to thank you, Mayor Walker, for chairing. I think the next time we meet, someone else is going to be leading these meetings, and I just want to thank you for your chairmanship.
I second that.
Thank you. And I want to tell you all that Mayor Mendenhall is without a doubt the toughest mayor I've taken riding. I took her up on an e-bike in Corner Canyon, and she is nails. She crashed a few times, wickedly crashed a few times, and got back up and then went over all the jumps with me. She was amazing. My offer is open to any of you that want to go, and we can go see the canyon, and we have e-bikes you can ride. But I think Erin had fun. She does have probably some wounds still, but.
Thanks for embarrassing me, Troy. I appreciate that.
Awesome rider. I'm going to tell you, she was. So, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Is our motion to adjourn still effective? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great Thanksgiving. Safely.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
Same to everyone.
Take care.
Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Bye-bye.